In this video, we're going to show you how to install the trailing arm bushing on your Ford Focus located in the rear suspension. Now we're going to use our 19mm socket to loosen and remove the lug nuts. Going to remove the wheel and set it aside. Now that we have the wheels off, we want to go ahead and remove our rear sway bar end links here. Now ours has been replaced. It's a 14mm nut here and a 14mm bolt. On the factory, it's 13mm. So if you have the original hardware, you want to go ahead and use the 13. Now that we have this removed, we're going to repeat for the other side. Now as we loosen and remove this here, it's going to allow the center pieces of the other link to come out. Now this is going to allow us to go ahead and grab the whole sway bar, pull it down. We want to grab our hardware in the middle of these links. Now before we loosen and remove our rear outer control arm bolt here, we want to use our pull jack here. You can use your floor jack. We want to go ahead and just gently support the rear suspension. And the reason why we're doing this here is that the rear suspension has the coil spring pushing down on it. So we need to go ahead and gently preload this to keep the tension on this when we remove this. If not, and you remove this bolt, well, the spring is going to pop it down and could come out at you. So it's a safety practice. Go ahead and gently support that. We're going to remove this, and then we should be able to slowly lower down our jack and pull out our spring. We're using our 15mm socket. Now we're going to go ahead and lower our jack. Do that slowly, releasing that spring tension. Roll the jack off to the side. And we'll go ahead and get that spring loose and pull that up and out. Using a 15mm socket, we want to go loosen and remove the lower bolt here on the lower control arm. And we're just going to leave that in just a couple threads here. All right. And we did spray this down with some rust penetrant here, and we also sprayed the upper bolt and the upper control arm here with some rust penetrant. Now we're going to leave the lower bolt in. That's going to hold some stability down below here while we go up top and loosen that bolt next. And we're just going to leave that in just a couple threads here. So we have this one left in, and then the lower one held in place. We want to go ahead and loosen and remove our shock bolt here. This is a 15mm. We want to go ahead and break that free. And then in most cases, once it starts coming out, you can go ahead and use power tool. Now directly beneath the front edge of the trailing arm, we have this plastic shield, and it's held in place by 3 7mm screws and a little plastic insert on the inside of the body over on the back side here. Now there's going to be one screw here, there's one right on the other side of this heat shield, and then one right on the back section here. I'm going to go ahead and start to loosen and remove these. We're just using our 1/4 inch with our 7mm and an extension. And once we get this out, we're just going to repeat this process for the other two. Then pull our piece down here and pull the little plug out of the inside of the body there. And we have our ABS wire that comes along the back of the inside here. I'm going to start by using our pocket screwdriver. I'm going to open this up and pull the rubber grommet out holding this. The next spot here, we have a little plastic push pin here. And normally you can just go on the other side and just push in the little locking tabs holding it and pull that through. There we go. We just pulled out that little button there. If you follow the wire around, it brings us to the back part of the beam itself. And we're going to use an 8mm socket on our ratchet. Want to loosen the bolt holding the ABS speed sensor into the back. Remove that bolt. We're going to be reusing that later on, so save that. And then we want to go ahead and pull that sensor out of the back. Now from the top side here, I want to go ahead and we want to pinch off our brake flex hose here. And we have a pair of plastic pliers here to go ahead and do this job for us. So what we're going to do is pinch this. That's going to keep that fluid from continuously flowing through when we disconnect our hard line right now, which we're going to do next. We're going to use our 13mm open end wrench, and we're going to crack this open. Now when you're doing this here with this hard line, you want to make sure that when you're loosening this nut here that the hard line is not spinning with it. So if you have to, use some rust penetrant, clean it up, and make sure that this is not spinning. If it is, there's potential that it can break inside, and that's going to open up a much larger job for you to task out later on. So I'm going to put my pliers on the back side here. Just want them out of the way when we start to work on everything. So tuck those off. Let's continue on to loosening this. And we just want to continue to unthread this until this nut comes out and this hard line is free. There it is. Now right here is a horseshoe clip. We want to go ahead and pop that off. Sometimes we could do the pick in there and tap that. There it is. Now you definitely want to go ahead and inspect this, make sure that it's not rotted. You want to make sure it's good and solid. If it is rusty, you want to go ahead and source out a replacement before we start our reassembly. Set that aside, and we can go ahead and separate the flex hose here from the bracket and just let that fall off to the side. Just inboard of our trailing arm here, you're gonna find the ABS connector right here, and it like pops into the frame right here. We're gonna use a trim tool and pop this out. With that out of the way, we want to go ahead and access the two bolts here. There's one on the right, one on the left. We want to get loosened and remove these. These are 15mm. So we can use our impact gun and loosen and remove these. Now here we have our parking brake cable that runs across and goes through our trailing arm. It's held in place by this little 10mm bolt. I want to get loosened and remove this. That should allow us to get some more flexibility out of this wire or cable. Now the reason why we left these two bolts in here is that the trailing arm bolts go through the control arms. That's what's pretty much securing everything in place here. So we can go ahead and remove these bolts, get those pulled out. Now our control arms are still kind of stuck in there. So you can use a pry bar. I want to go ahead and start to separate this here. And our goal is to separate the whole trailing arm with the brake assembly and put it right on our cart. We now have a serviceable trailing arm. Now right here is the component we need to replace. This is the bushing, this is the replacement unit, and it has a raised lip on one side, and that is going to be on this side here. The other side is smooth, so it's going to press in. Now this is also a fixed bushing, so you can't rotate this here. It's going to be key for when we install this here that the mounting point is in the same direction as the original. So what we do is we went ahead and we used one of our tools to go ahead and clean up the steel here, and we're going to simply put yellow crayon mark. You can etch it if you want, if you have something to etch the steel, but we're just going to use a yellow crayon mark here. And that way there, once we work this out, we can go ahead and press this in, line that up, and we should be pretty good. Our next step is we're going to use an air tool. We're going to cut out this bushing around the perimeter and get the whole center section out. Our next step here is we're going to spray around the perimeter with some rust penetrant. We're going to try and let this soak in for a little bit. And we'll let this soak for about 10-15 minutes, and then we'll come on back. Our next step is we're going to use an air chisel around the edge here, basically underneath the edge here, trying to work this in and then up and out using our air chisel, punching it out. Now, if you find that you need more room or you want to take this unit over to the press, as we're going to go ahead and do, you want to go ahead and grab this parking brake cable right here. And this is what we're going to do. You peel back this rubber boot. It's going to expose this cable on the inside. If you pull up on this, it's going to stretch and it's going to activate that parking brake and then put your pliers, the locking pliers, on the inside here. And that's going to lock it. We're going to do this on the other side of this as well. I'm pulling up on this here. You lock your pliers down on the cable here. That's going to allow us to go ahead and pull the barrel ends out of the adjuster in the middle. Work this barrel end back and forth and pop this out. These can be a bugger stuck in here, but this barrel end goes inside here. The cable runs through and it locks in, so the barrel end will go inside this opening. Then when we release our pliers here, it's going to pull right back in and lock it into place. But at this point here, what we're going to do is we should be able to release this. We're going to leave this on here because that doesn't matter. And we're going to remove this bolt right here. When we remove this bolt here, the parking brake cable is going to be free completely of the unit here, and then we can go ahead and bring it over to the press. We're going to use our 7mm socket on our 1/4" ratchet. And of course, we spray it down with some rust penetrant. We want this to come out nice and easy. Release some tension on that. Slide that out. Let's go ahead and take our unit over to the press. Now we have our trailing arm set up with our bushing. We made sure that the mounting point, the flange, was lined up with our yellow marks. I'm going to go ahead and slowly press this in. Now we're going to press this in so far, and then we want to go ahead and release it. We want to double check and make sure that we have clearance for our mounting bracket to clear. If not, we might have to change this out for a deeper cup. Now we did reposition our lower blocks. Press this in. When we press this in, it's going to be flush with the ridge there. It's fully seated. Perfect, ready for installation. Let's feed the cable up and in. There it is. Get that screw lined up. I'm gonna go ahead and snug that down. Snug that down gently. Now what we're going to do is we need to get that length out of this cable again, so we're going to use our pliers. We're going to pull on this, and then we're going to lock it down with these. Let's go ahead and do that. Pull this out. We're going to grab this cable end here. Now I just have to work this into this, and then we can release the cables. All right, so once you get that barrel end in there, we'll go ahead and release our cable ends here, or our pliers. You see that got tight again, pulled it right in. Don't forget to slide this boot up over. I want to go ahead and spin this up into position. I want to get our front bolts installed. And line up that lower. Let's go ahead and get our lower bolt in. We have upper bolt in, lower bolt in. Let's go ahead and install the 2 forward mounted bolts. Let's go ahead and feed our bolts up into place. Always want to get these started by hand first. Now that we have those 2 started, I'm going to go ahead and zip them down. We'll torque those down later. I'm going to go ahead and get our parking brake hook set inside the frame. Get our bolt started. Go ahead and snug that down. What we're going to do is feed our ABS wire up and get this installed. Going to get our 8mm bolt lined up. Get that started. Run that all the way in. And we're going to gently snug that down. So it's bottomed out there. Just give it a little bit more. You want that to be snug. We're going to run our wire back. Pop in our retainers. After we get our lower bolt in, we now want to go and get the upper. Now the only issue here is that the upper control arm is kind of twisted a little bit. So what we have to do is we need to push up on our suspension so that control arm bushing lines up. And then it'll line up and we should be able to zip that in. Now we're not going to tighten it down fully. We want to go ahead, at this point, we're going to install our shock. Let's go ahead and do so. We're going to go ahead and get our shock lined up here, get our bolt ready to go. I'm going to push up, compress our shock here. Line up that bolt and get it started. All right, once we have that in a few threads, we can go ahead and run that in a little bit. Not going to tighten it yet. Let's go ahead and install our flex hose. I'm going to push it up into place. Now it is keyed, so it's going to fit up into that bracket only one way. You'll feel it pop into position. Then we're going to grab our little tab here. Good, pop that on. Let's go ahead and line up our hard line here. Line that up, and we want to start this nut by hand. All right, now that we got that in a couple threads here, we're going to get our wrench on here. Sometimes wiggling the hard line helps threading this in. I'm going to run this in until the bottom's out, and then we'll snug it down. All right, it's bottomed out. We want to snug that down. You do want to make sure that that is pretty tight. We're going to release our plastic locking pliers here. Now that we have this installed, I'm going to go ahead and take some spray solvent. I want to clean that, wipe it down. Now we are going to have to perform the brake bleed service on this later on, but you do want to watch this here, check for any leaks. You want to go ahead and torque these 2 trailing arm bolts to 85 foot-pounds. Now that we have those torqued, we want to go ahead and install a harness for our ABS. Just line up those little plastic push buttons there, push it in. I'm going to take our plastic shield here, and there's this post right here that goes into the frame. Line that up, pop that in, line this up. Let's get our screws installed. I'm going to go ahead and get the other 2 started. All right, get that third one started. Let's come on back. We're going to go to our first one here, snug these down. They don't have to be super tight. right, it's bottomed out, just snug it a little bit more. You're just going to repeat for the other two. Now on our lower control arm here, when we install the spring, there's a little indent right here and it wraps up and around. That's for the pigtail of our coil spring. It's a specific fit. So you need to line this up, get the spring lined up here. We're gonna raise this up into position. And on the upper spring, there's also a bushing up here that has a pigtail end here. So we're gonna match that up to our spring. Then we're gonna put our pole jack underneath and lift this up. Now at this point here, you definitely want to be careful. We need to pull our sway bar out. And as this goes up, we're going to work it into the trailing arm here and get our bolt installed. Now the trailing arm is pushing up inside. There it goes. And use our screwdriver to go ahead and work that into place. Get our bolt in. Now when you go to install this lower bolt here, fitting it in through the back, in some cases due to the angle of the control arm and the trailing arm itself, you might not be able to get that to line up. What we found here is using a pry bar up through the coil spring hole, and you're gonna go ahead and give this a twist. You're gonna rotate that control arm until that bushing lines up. Then you can normally just push that bolt in. If you want to, you can pry this, get that bolt lined up, and then start to thread it in. Now at this point here, what we really want to do is want to compress our suspension to what we call a neutral ride height. That means if you had the vehicle on the ground with the wheels on it and the suspension was completely compressed, then you could go ahead and tighten down all of your hardware. Right now we're at our neutral ride height, so we can go ahead and tighten everything down. Let's torque down our outboard control arm bolt to 85 foot-pounds. There it is. Lower bolt here, going to torque down to 85 foot-pounds. Torque down the upper bolt here to 85 foot-pounds. Torque down our shock bolt to 76 foot-pounds. At this point here, we can go ahead and lower our pole jack. Now on the back section here, we're going to go ahead and install our end link. I'm just going to catch the threads on that there. I'm going to now install the passenger side. Now when tightening these down here, the best practice is to go ahead and sunk it down until the rubber bushing expands to the diameter of the washer itself. We're going to use our 14mm socket and do this. It's good there. It's going to go ahead and repeat for the other side. Now at this point here, you can go ahead and install your wheels. Don't forget, anytime you alter or replace a suspension component, you want to go ahead and bring it down and get an alignment professionally performed on that vehicle. Go ahead and take your wheel, line it up on the wheel studs, and we'll get the lug nut started. It's always best to start all of the lug nuts by hand and then tighten them down. That way that we don't cross thread the lug nuts. Now when snugging these down, you want to do this in a crisscross pattern. Now let's get and torque down our lug nuts to 94 foot-pounds. We're going to do this in a crisscross pattern. And you're all set. Start by spraying down the master cylinder. Want to make sure that this is clean before we open up the reservoir. We don't want any debris to fall down inside. And open up the reservoir. Set that off to the side. Then we're going to use an evacuation tool. You can use something like a turkey baster if you have something like that. And we want to pull out as much of that brake fluid as possible. Sometimes you can get quite a bit out, and other times you can get a minimal amount. But either way, you want to go ahead and pull that fluid out as much as you can. Have a container set aside. You can go ahead and put that fluid. We're going to continue this process until we have out as much as possible. Now at this point, we have out as much as we can get. We are going to remove our container here and get that out of the way so we don't spill it anywhere. Now I want to go ahead and fill up our reservoir with appropriate brake fluid recommended. And on this here, the container tells us it's DOT3. So you want to go ahead and check it. It could be on here or it could be on the lid itself. So we're going to top up our reservoir, fill up with some fresh fluid, and we get to that full mark. And add a little bit more to get there. All right, now that we're at the max line, I'm going to go ahead and install our lid here. Now here we are ready to perform our brake bleeding process. And what we're going to do is we're going to start at the right rear wheel, which is a passenger side rear wheel. Then we're going to proceed over to the left rear, which is the driver's side rear. Then we're going to proceed over to the right front and end at the left front. Now we have some assistance. We have someone inside the vehicle that's going to be pumping up our brake pedal for us. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and open up this brake bleeder screw. We're going to start by pulling off this little rubber cap here. If you don't have this rubber cap, it's not critical to the operation of the brakes. However, if you have it, you definitely need to remove it to do this process. Now what we're going to do is going to have that person inside the vehicle pump up the brakes about 4 to 5 times and hold pressure.
Holding.
While they're holding pressure, we're going to go ahead and pop this little container here on here to hold or maintain fluid. It's going to capture this fluid. And we're going to go ahead and open this up. Now inside the vehicle, the brake pedal is going to go to the floor, and then we'll go ahead and close this. And we're going to do this multiple times. What we're looking to do is capture or release any air that is in the system, and we want a solid, steady stream of brake fluid to come through our line. All right, go ahead and pump it up. Okay, and we're going to continue this process until we have that solid stream of fluid. Continue, please.
Holding. Floor.
Go ahead, pump it up. All right, at this point here, we are getting a good solid stream of fluid. We're going to do this one more time, and then we're going to proceed over and do the same process on the driver's side rear wheel. Go ahead.
Holding.
All right, we'll snug this down. Want to go ahead and relieve our drainage hose here. Now if you have some spray solvent, you want to go ahead and give this a quick little spray. Clean up the brake fluid, as brake fluid is corrosive, so you want to make sure you clean that up the best you can. And if you have that rubber cap, go ahead and pop that onto that bleeder screw. Now that we've bled the two rear wheels, let's go ahead up to the master cylinder and top that off. And then we're going to continue with the right front wheel and then end with the left front. And then we're going to come back and top off the reservoir again. Let's go ahead and open up our reservoir. And let's go ahead and fill this up. Once you're filled up, go ahead and install this. Now here we are over at the right front. This is a third wheel that we're doing. We want to go ahead and use our 10mm wrench right here. We're going to place our port for our container on there. I'm going to go have the person inside pump up the brakes and hold it. Let's go ahead and crack this open. Okay, pump it up. Pump it up. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this up. Remove our hose. Spray it down with some spray solvent. Clean that up. Now if you have the rubber cap, go ahead and install that now. I'm going to go ahead and proceed and end with the left front wheel. Let's go ahead and open up our reservoir. And let's go ahead and fill this up. Once you're filled up, go ahead and install this. Now that we're done here, let's go ahead and install our wheels, and we're going to torque down our lug nuts to 94 foot-pounds. Once you're done there, go ahead and take the vehicle for a road test.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.